Welcome to the Sheridan Report, brought to you by MyBookie.AG. Make sure you go to thegruelytruth.net, click on the MyBookie.AG banner at the top of the page to be able to get a first-time deposit bonus of up to $1,000, 50% of whatever you put in. And make sure you go to the Sheridan Report, buy the Sheridan Report for $10 a day to get all of the, Bobby's picks, or $50 a month for Bobby's picks. So you could parlay those two, as they say, and make a little money. I am your co-host for the Sheridan Report, Mike Goodpaster. And right now I want to welcome in Bobby Sheridan. And Bobby, I just keep wanting to open the show after that music and say, this is Mel Allen, and you're listening or watching This Week in Baseball.
Oh, man, it makes you feel that way. And, Mike, every time you mention about buying the report for $10 or $50, it's like, well, why would I buy it? I mean, the guy comes on every day and tells us what he's got. Well, you're right about that. And I love analyzing. I'm going to mention, though, where I think it could still help on. I love analyzing the games, and I like giving the listeners a kind of a perspective as, okay, where are we going with this game? Maybe why are some of the reasons? And I like giving that perspective. I think it's good for me to talk about it. It's good for the listeners to hear it. But I think it would be neat to buy the report if you're a listener, because, it comes out the night before. There's not a lot of services that are out there that it's hard enough to find a quality one and an honest one. But then when you do find that guy, it's hard enough to get the picks any sooner than about an hour before they go off. We all got jobs, we all got lives, and I put my sheet out there. The latest that comes out is sometimes I'll email it to you, Mike. I email it to you every night. You know that. It was about maybe 3 a.m. your time, which is midnight Pacific. That's the latest that comes out. Oftentimes it's midnight your time and 9 Pacific. And so it's the night before. And there's some things I don't talk about on here, especially the early risers and a couple of the early starts, like in the MLB's going to have a lot of early starts every day. We have day games and weekend morning games and, Sundays. So I still think it's a good thing for even our listeners to purchase. And I put it out there more along the lines. It's kind of for my computer guy, the guy that handles the website, it pays some of the bills. Just, it's not really a moneymaker per se for me. It's not where I'm making my money, that's for sure. So that's why I try to keep the prices low. And just thought I'd mention that for the customers and for the listeners. And I'm ready to roll for today.
Well, let's roll. Let's start off with baseball.
Mike, baseball, I'm really proud of this. Let me bring something up about from yesterday. There's a guy comes on that I kind of I don't follow him. I get a newsletter sent every morning, and I read some of the stuff and some of the roundups he does for me, and that I don't have to really worry too much about looking at. And he was talking about baseball yesterday, and I'm trying to find it as we're talking right now. Baseball yesterday, the favorites were 11-4. MLB opening day favorites were 11-4, and even 10 of those 11 covered the run line, which means covered a run and a half, which is a terrible bet. It's the worst bet you could ever make. But yesterday, 10 of the 11 favorites actually won by 2 or more runs. And the upsets, meaning the underdogs, were by the Mets, plus 110 against the Nationals, and the Tigers, plus 130 against the Jays. Well, if that's not a complete endorsement of what we just talked about, there were only 4 underdogs that won on the card, 15 games. And I only picked 3 games, Mike, and 2 of them were the underdogs that won. So I know how to find the top underdogs. That's my forte. So we picked 3 games yesterday. We go 2-1, we make money. And our 3-team parlay, which is 3 favorites every day, we go down. We hit the first 2. We had it all going to the Red Sox. They're up 2-0 in the second inning with a Cy Young favorite. We don't hold on. We get crushed 10-4. But we wound up having a 4-1 odds in our favor on that game when the Red Sox, after a 2-0 lead in the second inning, live betting, were minus 400. We had plus 400. So we were in a great position. That's all you can do in sports betting is put yourself in good positions, and then hopefully they hang on. So I'm really proud of yesterday's start in baseball. And today, you asked me, Mike, so let's give you today. I like as my top play of the day is going to be the Cardinals. And they are, they're minus 103 right now. So they're actually still not favored.
They're minus 115 on mine.
Okay, so they've jumped up. They've got the action. Last night when I was making the top play, I actually was plus 100. and then it went to -03. And so they've gotten the action today. And, I love the Cardinals. I still think they're going to win. I probably would parlay that at -115 with the Tigers. Tigers are my other play at plus $1.20, and that's down to plus $1.08. What do you got there, Mike, on the Tigers?
I've got plus 105.
Yeah, plus 105. So both of my picks have gotten the action since last night, and I think for good reason. So that's the two games I like, Mike. I like the Tigers and the Cardinals. That's my two straight plays.
Well, this is the thing too, though.
Cardinals.
If you parlay those two right now on MyBookie, you're getting like 2.5 to 1 odds, or actually almost 3 to 1.
Right. Probably like about plus 286 or something like that.
Yeah, it was like it's just a $20 bet pays $56.
Exactly. So that's what I'm good for, Mike. That's what I do well in baseball is those parlays and those dog-to-dog parlays, and this happens to be a small, -05 to a plus 08 or whatever it was, and it's a great bet. So I like the Tigers and the Cardinals a lot. One of them's at 4:00, one's at 5, and then my 3-team parlay that I do that's going to be 3 favorites that kind of covers our underdog action or adds to a bigger day is the Rockies back to the Red Sox. So back Rockies and Red Sox and the Padres. We added the Padres. So that's our 3-teamer we like. And as of last night when I put that in, 100 paid 364, and it's going to pay more like about 390 now, the way the odds have changed. A few of those favorites have come down a little bit. So that's a 3-team parlay, the Rockies, Red Sox, and Padres. That's the day in baseball.
All right, Bobby, what about the NBA? I know you got a couple games you like tonight there.
I do. And, Mike, we talked off air, you and I, as we often do, about everything. And we both mentioned, hey, maybe it's time to kind of, the NBA gets screwy late in the year. And now that baseball's in season, we got the NCAA, maybe we can back off a little on the NBA and kind of wait till the playoffs. And I think that's a great idea, except, I've been in such NBA mode and taken some bad beats this week. But, gosh, I look at the games, and 2 just really stood out to me, especially 1. And that's why I still put it on the report, and I still bet it myself. And if it's on the report, I bet it. That's bottom line. Otherwise, I don't put it on there. And the Lakers tonight are my top play over the Hornets. And, I've got a number of factors, and I want to spend a lot of our time on the NCAA. But one of the things I like is the Lakers, LeBron set out last game. They went on the road to Utah, and he sat it out, and he's playing the home games, for the fans. And the Lakers are still filling Staples Center and still cheering for for their team. And LeBron's playing for them, and he's already said when he takes the court, he's playing to win. He's a Hall of Famer and top 5 of all time, arguably. And those kind of guys, they don't ever want to take the court and lose. And so he's playing hard. And there's a few of those players trying to stay on the roster next year. They're playing hard with him. There's 2 or 3 of those guys and that want to stay on that roster along with Brandon Ingram and Ball for next year and whoever else they add. Well, whoever else they add might be playing against them tonight because there's a lot of speculation that Kemba Walker, the Hornets' great point guard, might be joining the Lakers as a free agent. And wouldn't LeBron like to play really well tonight in front of Kemba Walker, and part of his pitch to come on over and help us win next year. So watch for that little battle tonight. I think the Lakers will win it. They've been +1 or +2 has been the winning formula lately for them, and they're +2, 2.5 tonight against the Hornets.
So my question would be this: yeah. The Hornets still have a shot to make the playoffs, though.
Yeah, they do, and they're going to play. There's no doubt about that. But the Hornets have thrown in more clunkers than good ones over the last 20, Mike. Yeah. They're only about 7-13 against the spread the last 20. And so, this is a last-ditch stand for them. They're still trailing the Heat, and they're still trailing the Magic for that 8th spot. They're not mathematically out. So, yeah, they're going to bring it. They're going to try to win. I think the Lakers are going to try to win too. And so I like the Lakers tonight over the Hornets. But that's a really good point. The Hornets are not out of it.
All right.
And then we have a free play. Yeah, we have a free play that's been on the website since last night, and I don't know that I've mentioned it on Twitter yet. I might or might not have. I've really been busy with different things. But the Hawks +3, which is down to 2.5 over the Blazers tonight at home, I think is a good match. And we had a good bet, and we had the Hawks in this exact spot, this exact matchup at Portland. And we won a bet with about a month ago when Atlanta went to Portland. And Portland was, wow, just like they have been all year, this come through late with Lillard or McCollum or Nurkic or whoever. And they did beat the Hawks that night by 5 or 7. I know we covered with the Hawks for sure. And I'm back on them tonight. The Hawks have beaten some really good teams. Trae Young is playing fantastic. And, McCollum and Nurkic are out. And now it's down to just Lillard. And so, I think Atlanta's going to knock them off. The Blazers need this. They're trying to catch that, stay in that 4th spot, and host a playoff series in round 1. But I think the Hawks are going to be too much for them tonight. So that's my free play. So I like the Lakers and the Hawks in the NBA.
All right, let's go March Madness. I know you've got one top play there at least.
I do. And, Mike, this is one of those things where, the underdogs, I think, are going to come through in this Sweet 16. And I was on a small favorite last night as my top play. I did like Michigan, and you were right, Mike. Texas Tech, just, wow. Not to go back, but I went back just because that was I was on a favorite yesterday, but the 3 dogs, won the games yesterday. The 3 underdogs. Purdue straight up as a small underdog. Texas Tech straight up as a small underdog, and then Oregon as a 8.5-point dog, covered. So that's 3 of 4 yesterday dogs, and I'm looking for the same thing today, and so are a lot of the professionals. LSU +6, which is up to 6.5 over Michigan State. Most of the professional money that I've been aware of has been on LSU in that game over Michigan State, and then as well as Auburn. That line's +5.5, and it's dipped down a little bit. It was 6 at some places. And I think a lot of the pros are waiting for that line. They expected Michigan State and Carolina to get the action, and for those lines to jump up a little bit. They have the pedigree, they have the coaches, and it hasn't happened. And it hasn't happened because these 2 teams are dangerous today, LSU and Auburn, and Auburn especially with their depth and their bench. That might be a key over North Carolina. And LSU, Mike, is my top play over Michigan State. I actually think they're going to win the game. I think LSU is going to knock them off tonight. Yeah. What do you think, Mike? What do you think of those games?
I agree. I like LSU. Cassius Winston scares the hell out of me. I did bet this game. I can't remember. I might have bet it straight up even, but I think I took the points on it. I think LSU's got a legitimate shot. I think they've got the better players. I don't know if they have the better team, if that makes sense. But with that being said,
right.
I think if this game is close going into the second half, I think you should feel very comfortable taking LSU. I think the only way Michigan State wins this game is to jump on LSU early, because I don't know if LSU mentally is as tough as Michigan State, and I don't know if they can handle falling behind like that and be able to come back. But I think LSU's got the better players.
Great analysis. I do too, Mike, and so do a lot of the professionals that are handicapping this. And, one thing I really liked was, LSU, when they lost their coach, I think if that was going to be a big factor, they would have been an early casualty. But the fact that they've gotten here without him might be a positive.
I don't think so. What I think with LSU is this.
Okay.
LSU offensively basically shoots the ball a lot, and then they go crash the boards with those big, long guys to go get the rebounds. I don't think that – I think if you see a difference, it's going to be when they play a Michigan State or a Duke, because let's face it, LSU is just better than Yale, and they're better than Maryland. And remember this, they struggled to win both of those games. So the question is, do they struggle as much if they have Will, or did it not matter either way? I think Will Wade's a really good basketball coach, and that is the only thing that gives me pause here. That is the only reason I didn't bet this straight up, because if Will Wade if their coach is there and it's plus 235, I'm probably going to drop a significant amount of money on them, just straight up win the game. I'm going with the points and the thought that they are athletically so good that they will stay in the game.
Right. I like that analysis a lot, and I agree with you on that. Auburn, now the other game, what I chose to do is in LSU, I agree with you. I think LSU is going to beat Michigan State tonight. But I took the points as well, and I also took a money line bet. But Auburn, I think, could be one of those things where the money line bet might be the right play there too. I'll tell you why, because that could be one of those sink or swim games where Auburn either wins straight up or loses by 15. Can you see my thought process on that?
Yeah, but I think Auburn gets blown out. I don't think they've got the players, and I don't think they have the coaching either. And I think what we've seen is they've been a very hot, streaky team, especially at the end of the season. But if you remember back, they're real lucky they got out of the New Mexico State game alive. New Mexico State misses an open three down on the baseline that would have actually knocked Auburn out then. And North Carolina has been very consistent over the last 15, 20 games. I mean, the first half of the season, they were up and down. So I think the thing that concerns me here is this. I wanted to bet Auburn, but the consistency of North Carolina is why, if I bet Auburn, I would just take the points, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, that's what I've done, and I've labeled them as a solid straight wager. And
well, I can tell you this, though. What I did do is I bet all 4 underdogs straight up to win, and I put a big $5 on it. And the reason is I could see all 4 winning. And if it does, a $5 bet pays $500.
Exactly, Mike. You've got it. You hit it on the head. And as far as those kind of bets go, the value of those. And the underdogs, they covered 3 out of 4, and I think they'll probably cover 3 out of 4 again today. These are just really tough spreads for these favorites, and it's not that big of a difference in talent or anything. The thing I like about Auburn is the 3-point shooting, and I like their depth. They're getting contribution from 8 or 9 guys. North Carolina really only 5 or 6.
But my point is this:
if
if you read on thegurlingtruth.net my analysis of the Houston-Kentucky matchup, I picked Kentucky by 2 because of this. Teams that have to rely on the 3 at some point die by it. They usually don't win a national championship. That's the thing that scares me off of, like, Houston. Every game they've lost this year, the 3 games they lost, they shot under 28% from the 3-point line. When they shoot over that, they beat everybody they play. I think Houston-Kentucky is a complete toss-up. I think when you look at Duke and Virginia Tech, I mean, Virginia Tech's used to playing them. They beat them. They beat them without Zion Williamson. Virginia Tech didn't have to. I would take the points in Virginia Tech, I think, and feel pretty comfortable with it. And I said at the start of the tournament that Virginia Tech, I thought, was the most dangerous opponent for Duke, just because there's going to be no fear factor. They've played them. They've beaten them. So I think all 4 of these games are extremely interesting tonight. I think they're much more interesting than what we saw last night, because to me last night, Purdue-Tennessee was the game that was interesting. And I think that proved out, because I think that was the game of the tournament so far.
Yeah, it was, Mike, and you got to see it straight on. And you wrote a great article on that today on the website. I read it, and it was a great article, and I didn't get to see anything like that in my 2 games then.
But you got to do it for free and see it, so you didn't have to pay $1,000 for a ticket. Let's touch on Saturday lines, because MyBookie has Purdue as a 4.5-point underdog.
That's what I got too. I got Virginia minus 4.5 and the total of 126. That's a 5:49 Pacific, 8:49 Eastern start.
Yeah.
And then at the 6:09. Mike, Gonzaga minus 4, Texas Tech plus 4. That line opened 3, went up to 4.
Yeah, and I could easily see both of these dogs winning.
Yeah, I know. You already commented to me privately at Texas Tech. You already had them going to the Final Four. That was on air, and you already commented to me privately that you thought they were going to beat Gonzaga, and Purdue. You just witnessed them. So, yeah, I mean that's I agree with you. The underdogs is where most of the professionals have been touting here. The rest of the way. And the bottom line is, even the first 40 games, or 41 games, the dogs were 23-18 covering. So covering the spread is really tough when the other team can hit a 3 and go on a little 7-0 run. And even in the last couple minutes when these teams are up 9, trying to cover 7, they're not trying to score. They're just trying to run the clock out.
Yeah, and the other team is doing anything they can to get a couple points to try to get back in the game.
To get a couple points, drive in and get an uncontested layup, get an uncontested 3 because the other team doesn't want to foul. So it's really hard. You got to win by 17 to cover an 8-point spread instead of being, you know what I mean? You have to have that kind of a cushion. And it's hard. It's hard for these teams to separate.
I would think from looking at those games on Saturday that I think both underdogs have such a good shot. I think you could at least get a split it if you both bet them straight up to win.
Yeah, and one of them wins and you make money. You
Yeah.
know, right now Texas Tech is plus 160, so you put 100 there. You put 100 on Purdue at plus 170. Okay, one of them hits. You got, let's say Texas Tech hits, you got 260 back.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you've already got your money, and if you're playing for free on the other game, and if it loses, well, you make $60. And
Now,
that's my theory in MLB.
What do you think are the chances, if you let this sit there, that the line grows?
I don't think. Well, look at today. These lines haven't grown, and you know, if you look at the games today, I think it was expected that North Carolina and Michigan State would go up a smidge, and they really haven't. And so I think it's going to sit right there. If anything, come down a bit. So I would probably buy those games right now. If you like Purdue and you like Texas Tech, I'd probably buy them right now at those prices.
I know, but I may wait just because I got so much money tied up tonight.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's that, you know, that's for most.
Because I may want to bet even more if I make more, if you know what I mean.
Well, that's right. You might want to bet more, and you might want to add on. And you know, Mike, I do, and I'll be honest with you. I'm honest. I'm so honest with all the listeners, and of course, honest with you, Mike, especially off the air. And you know, when I go on my side, my offshore account, it caps me at $250 on MLB, NBA, NCAA. You know, overnight lines, not a line that's like a Super Bowl or something that's already out there and it's firm, but like an overnight lines that just come out. And so I have to make the initial bet at $250, and I might want to put $1,000 on the game, or $750 or $1,500, and then I have to come in the next day. Well, you know, when I come in the next day, a lot of times I get, you know, a worse line, and I'm like, okay, darn it. But a lot of times I even get a better line.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's in the pros. They don't know. You don't really always know where the line's going to go. You don't. It's tough. It's a guessing game. So even the best don't always know, and so waiting is never a bad thing.
All right, guys. We're going to have on this day, we're going to talk a little Michael Jordan from 1982 after this word from MyBookie.AG.
Hi, I'm Mike Goodpasser from the Grueling Truth Sports Network, and I'm here with just one simple message. If you're watching the games, it's time to start making money. The Grueling Truth has recently partnered with MyBookie.AG, an industry-leading sportsbook website, who reminds you that where you bet is just as important as who you're betting on, and that's why the Grueling Truth urges you to check out MyBookie.AG. In addition to the usual thousands of odds, money lines, proposition bets, and futures offered on MyBookie.AG daily, they also have in-game live betting and a mobile site that makes wagering on the go easier than ever. So join now, and MyBookie will give you up to a free $1,000 cash bonus on your first deposit. Just enter promo code TGT50, that's TGT50, to take advantage of this offer. You can also go to thegruelingtruth.net, click the banner at the top of the page for MyBookie.AG, and also get the same benefit and the same $1,000 free cash bonus on your first deposit. So visit MyBookie.AG, courtesy of the Grueling Truth, and enjoy winning today. MyBookie.AG. You play, you win, you get paid.
All right, guys, we're back on the Sheridan Report, brought to you by MyBookie.AG. And, Bobby, you got another NCAA tournament you want to talk about today?
I do, Mike. On this day was, we're right here in late March, so many of these things are going to be about the tournament, and I'm glad they are, because I learned so much about these different years and when I wasn't doing this for a living. And 1982 was a great year. It was the 44th NCAA men's basketball championship, and North Carolina defeated Georgetown 63-62. And the only thing I really know is Michael Jordan hit that shot, and you know, everybody knows that. But talk to us, go deeper, Mike.
All right, one of the greatest games ever played for an NCAA championship, two high-powered teams. It was Georgetown's first time getting there. Georgetown had come up short. 1980, they lost in the Elite Eight. I think in 81, they lost in the Sweet 16. The 82 tournament, you look at the East region they came out of, and actually North Carolina's toughest game was against James Madison in the second round of the tournament. This is when they expanded the tournament from 40 teams in 1981 to 48 teams in 1982. So James Madison upsets Ohio State in the first round, which was basically a play-in game. You had, I think it was 4 play-in games on each side. You had like 16 teams that had to play into the regular bracket or something like that. And then James Madison comes out and almost upset North Carolina. North Carolina beats them 52-50 at the buzzer. North Carolina went on to, I think, beat Alabama and Villanova, which weren't blowouts, but they handily won the games. You drop down to the Midwest region. The Midwest region is where you had the Cinderella. And I know people aren't going to think the Houston Cougars in the early 80s was a Cinderella, but this was the team that was led by, what was his name, Larry Mishaw? And they had a very young Hakeem Olajuwon, but they were I think a 6 seed, and they came out and they had to play in the first round. They beat Alcorn State, who Alcorn State back in the early 80s was a very good program, went to like 4 or 5 tournaments in the early 80s. They came out, they beat a really good Tulsa team who was seeded 3rd ahead of them. Then they pull a big upset over Missouri by a point at the buzzer, and Missouri was, I think, the 2 seed there. And they get up, and instead of playing DePaul, here's another Ray Meyer pooping his pants moment. Ray Meyer loses in the second round, which is his first game, 82-75 to Boston College. And I know whenever we bring that up in the early 80s, we're talking about Michael Adams, who was a big part of that team. And then from there, Boston College upset Kansas State. So that set it up for Houston to play Boston College instead of playing a DePaul or an Arkansas in the Elite Eight, which led to Houston winning the game. I think it was high scoring. It was like 100-90 or something like that. But Houston advanced on where they would meet North Carolina. And then when you go back to the next bracket, I know with Risley, we've talked about the 1981 UAB Blazers, who were coached by Gene Bartow. They were the team that actually lost to Indiana at Assembly Hall in the regional semifinals, the Sweet 16 in 1981. But they probably, up until the Final Four, gave IU their toughest game. IU ended up beating them 87-72. But in the second round of that tournament, UAB was the number 4 seed, and they upset Indiana 80-70. And I'm pretty sure that Ted Kitchell missed that game or only played parts of that game because he had a bad back, which plagued him through most of his Indiana career. UAB, after they upset Indiana, they went and played Ralph Sampson in Virginia and upset Ralph Sampson in Virginia in the regional semifinals, 68-66. The interesting thing about Sampson for his career is they made the Final Four in 81. 1980, they played in the NIT championship game against Minnesota and Kevin McHale. They get upset in 82 by UAB. In 1983, they get upset in the regional final by North Carolina State. The thing that's funny about it is Sampson gets all this notoriety for coming in, and he's going to turn the program around, and he was a large part of that. But in 1984, the year after him, kind of the Oscar Robertson we've talked about with Cincinnati thing, where 1959 UC goes to the Final Four, they don't win it. But then the next 3 years, they win 2 championships and play in 3 finals without Oscar. The Virginia Cavaliers in 1984 ended up going to the Final Four with Othell Wilson was the guard, if I remember right. You had Rick Carlisle, and then they had a big man who played in the NBA for a while by the name of Olden Polynice. And once again, that 84 team got there because they got a break. That break was Indiana upsetting North Carolina in the 1984 regional semifinals. And then Virginia beats Indiana by, I think, 2 or 4 points to get to the Final Four. And they almost upset Houston in that Final Four. But to get back to 82, UAB then advances to the Elite Eight, and they played Louisville. Louisville had upset the number 2 seed, Minnesota, and beat them by like 5 or 6 points. UAB loses to Louisville, so Louisville goes to the Final Four. They're the 3rd seed, but most people thought Virginia or Minnesota was coming out of that bracket. And then the West region, the interesting thing is there's no UCLA, which I think it had been a long time since there had been no UCLA there. And I think the favorite coming into this would have had to have been Georgetown. Georgetown was loaded. The number 2 seed was Oregon State. And Oregon State, Ralph Miller was the head coach there. He was a great coach, but always seemed to come up short, get upset in the tournament. I think the year before this, or 2 years before this, it was either 80 or 81, Oregon State was actually the number 1 seed, and they got upset by Kansas State when they had Rolando Blackman. But Georgetown, in their first round, played Wyoming. Wyoming actually gave Georgetown all they could handle. Georgetown, I think, beat them by like 7 or 8 points. And then Georgetown blows out Fresno State. And the thing about Georgetown, 82 through 85, maybe the greatest defensive team in NCAA history for all 4 years. They hold Wyoming to 43. They hold Fresno State to 40. And then Oregon State gets held to 45. And Georgetown put it on them like 69 to 45 or something like that in the Elite Eight. The Cinderella on this side would have been Idaho. Idaho upset Iowa 69-67, and then Idaho lost in the Sweet 16 to Oregon State. So that set up a Final Four between Georgetown and Louisville, and that was what you would think it would be. Georgetown holds Louisville to 46 points and beats them 50 to 46. So you've got the most points they gave up going into that NCAA tournament was 46, or the NCAA championship game was 46 to a really good Louisville team, because that's the Louisville team that would play Houston in the Phi Slamma Jamma game in the semifinals, where there was like a million dunks and the final score was like 96 to 86 or something. And in the top bracket, you had North Carolina played in the Final Four against Houston. And Houston stayed in this game. North Carolina beats them 68 to 63, which sets up the North Carolina-Georgetown game. And a lot of people don't know this, but I'm pretty sure the MVP or the most outstanding player of the tournament was James Worthy, not Michael Jordan. You look at the championship game, I think the starting lineup for North Carolina was Matt Doherty, James Worthy, Sam Perkins. They had a guy by the name of Jimmy Black who never hardly ever shot the ball, but he's a really good point guard. You had Michael Jordan. But the thing everybody remembers is Jordan hitting that final shot. But James Worthy in that game put up a Jack Givens or Bill Walton performances from 73 or 78, because he comes out and he goes 17 for 13 and scores 28 points. The only problem with Worthy is he only made 2 out of 7 free throws. But in the end, he made the one that mattered to clinch the championship at the end of it. Georgetown was a team that was led, of course, by Patrick Ewing. And the thing that stood out to me was like the first 3 or 4 shots that North Carolina took in that game, Ewing tried to intimidate them by goaltending all of them. And he gave them 3 points. I don't know if the shots would have went in or not, but he was trying to, impose his will on the game and scare the hell out of them.
Right.
The sad thing, they also had Eric Sleepy Floyd. And if you remember, Sleepy Floyd in this game, I think, had like 20 points. And Sleepy Floyd was a guy, I think it was game 4 against the Lakers in the Forum in 1987, scored like 50 or 60 points and like 40 of them in the second half to actually upset the Lakers in game 4 to stave off a sweep. Sleepy Floyd was a great player. He was just stuck at Golden State in a time when he was about the only great player. And then the guy you got to feel sorry for is Fred Brown, who dribbles the ball down the court and thinks he has a guy flashing up around half court that's open. He throws the pass there, and it's James Worthy. And Worthy intercepts the pass, takes it to the hole, gets fouled, makes 1 free throw to put him up 63-60. Georgetown scores a cheap bucket at the end, so hopefully nobody had a point and a half on this game. But it was 63-62, and Georgetown loses the championship to North Carolina. A new star is born. Jordan hits like an 18-footer on the wing to give them a lead before Fred Brown screws it up. But the great thing about this was in 83, Georgetown, I think, loses to Memphis in the Sweet 16. But 1984, they win the national championship. And the thing I remember most about that game was Fred Brown, when they had the game clinched, they won it 84-75. As soon as the game's clinched, John Thompson subs for him, and he comes running off the court. And, I mean, he's in tears, and Thompson gives him this huge embrace. And you could just tell the weight that was lifted off of that kid after the mistake he'd made 2 years before.
2 years. Oh, man, Mike. Oh, gosh, that's great. And, I'm sure it's made the rest of his life a lot better, too.
It doesn't, because you still cost your team that national championship.
Yeah.
And there's guys like Eric Sleepy Floyd that didn't get a ring in 1984.
No, I know that's true, but you know, I had a question as you just talked about how you painted a picture right from the wing. You said Michael Jordan. Was that the same arena that Smart hit his
Yes.
shot in '87?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
The only difference
I
is
thought that
Smart's
was
was
right.
on the baseline and Jordan's was on the wing. Plus, the Smart shot was much better and much more important since I was an Indiana fan. I was cheering for
Yeah,
Georgetown in the other game because I have my neighbor, Larry Grubar, who kept telling me that North Carolina was going to win. And we had an argument that night before the game, and then I watched the game, and I stayed away from his house for a few days after that.
yeah, because he was right. But
Yeah.
you know, getting back to Smart shot,
Interestingly, though, that's the last time I was wrong. Go ahead.
I believe it. But getting back to that shot, Smart shot, more towards the baseline. I remember listening to Bobby Knight talk about how he thought that was a great shot, and he acknowledged that obviously, but he said that wasn't the best play of the shot. And are you aware of how he described it? What he thought the best play of that
Talking
shot
about the
was?
pass.
The pass. Or what happened was,
Was that Daryl Thomas on the pass?
Daryl Thomas subtly did a little bit of a pump fake or some sort of a movement that freed some space for him to hit Smart with that pass. And Bobby Knight talked about that being such a very smart, fundamentally sound play. You know, obviously something that they work on all the time in the post.
Yep.
And it didn't matter that it was 8 seconds, 7.
And I know
6.
you
Didn't
saw
matter.
the end of this game last night, but the other thing that stood out to me was Indiana was down 73-70, I think. And Smart went the length of the court and made a great move, little up and under to score to make it 73-72. And then was it Howard Trish that missed the free throw or Derek Coleman?
No, it was Derek Coleman. And you know, last night I want to let the listeners know it was very interesting. I was at Anaheim, and you know, Mike got me the credential, and you know, and it was just a lot of fun for me to be able to watch the game from really close and be on the floor and everything. And I promise you, and I even tweeted this before the game started. They were the NCAA was showing on the big board, during warm-ups, like an hour before the game, there, so the fans have something to look at. They were showing the Indiana-Syracuse game, and at that time, Gonzaga was not on the floor. They came out later, but on the floor was, their
Michigan,
opponent.
not Michigan, Florida State.
Florida State. I was just trying to blank for a second. Florida State was on the floor stretching, and some guys were shooting, and they were kind of just, doing an informal type of shoot around. And all those guys stopped for a moment and watched the last 30 seconds of that game. All of them. It was kind of cool. They all watched the missed free throw. They watched Smart go down and make the shot. They watched Smart, hit the game winner.
You know the thing that really stands out to me that people don't remember is the fact that Smart hits that shot with like 3 or 4 seconds left, and Syracuse just totally crapped on themselves and didn't get the timeout called till there was 1 second left.
Right. So there was 1 second, and when the camera flashes on Knight, it shows him. He was completely on that, wanting to make sure what that time was, how much they were going to put on the clock, where they were going to have that, and he was.
Yeah, because I remember they showed the replay because Boeheim, from what I remember in that game, was raising hell to get more time put on the clock. But when they showed the replay, it was clear that nobody called a timeout, that there was like a second left.
Right, and even without instant replay that we have now, I think the officials got that right. I think it was about a second.
Yeah.
Which really gave them nothing because, they would have had to do like a Leitner type play, and they tried the long pass and Smart intercepted it, and there's a history. But that was kind of neat that was on the big board last night, and all those guys, weren't even born yet. Think about it, 87, 97, 07. They weren't even born yet, and they're watching that, and that's pretty neat. So.
Yeah, with 3 or 4 seconds, I mean, hell, you could have thrown the ball to midcourt, called timeout, ran a play with 2 seconds left from half court, and got a shot off. Hey, this is something right here, and hopefully he doesn't listen to the show because his head will get big. But the 2 greatest passes I've seen like that, length of the court to win games, of course, the Grant Hill to Christian Leitner. The other one, 1980, Indiana, Ohio State. Steve Risley threw the pass at the end of the game that got caught, scored to win the Big Ten championship at Assembly Hall. Don't tell him that I know about that.
Oh, man. I did not know about that, and I have to tell him, Mike. I
Yeah,
gotta tell
no,
him.
you
That's
don't.
great.
You can't tell him. Just don't tell him. He doesn't know that I know, I don't
Okay.
think. But yeah,
All right.
he threw a pass with like 2 seconds left, length of the court, and I forget who caught it and scored it. But I remember watching the game because I think it was either a Saturday or Sunday afternoon game on NBC. It was for the Big Ten title, and Ohio State had Kelvin Ramsey, Clark Kellogg, Herb Williams. They were a great team. Both teams were great teams.
Yeah, no doubt. And the other thing I was going to mention that I didn't, and everybody knows this, or a lot of the fans do, but that we're talking about the '82 Carolina team. Mike, the '81 team that lost to Indiana in the championship game, how many of those from that starting lineup returned for the '82 starting lineup?
In '82?
North Carolina.
From 81.
Yeah.
Doherty was a freshman that year. Worthy was on that team. Perkins was on that team. Black and Jordan, I don't think either one were on that team. And the main backups on the 82 team, I think, were Buzz Peterson, Jim Braddock, and there's another guy. So there was only, from the 81 team that I know of, Perkins and Worthy.
Okay, so Perkins and Worthy. So that
I mean, Black might have been like a backup sitting on the bench, but he didn't really play. It was Perkins and Worthy.
Okay, all right. And then they added, of course, the freshman.
Yeah, Matt Doherty.
Yeah, that's funny. I read Michael Jordan posted, because today's the anniversary, so if you go on and you look at Michael Jordan's Twitter, he said, today was the day my name changed from Mike to Michael.
Well,
and he tweeted that out.
I will still say this. You go back and you watch that game. They won that game because of James Worthy. And James Worthy was an absolute stud, and I think one of the most underrated players in NBA and college basketball history.
Yeah, but how can you be underrated when you're rated top 50 of all time?
Because when you don't think of James Worthy when you think of those Lakers teams. You think of Kareem and Magic.
Yeah, true.
You know? I think there's no doubt, but you know what? Nobody was yelling to get him on the 92 team, the Dream Team.
No, that's true.
But and if you remember, in 1991, he's why the Lakers beat the Bulls in that Game 1, because he went off in Game 1, but then he got hurt, I think, right before Game 2 or early in Game 2, and once he got hurt, the Lakers weren't even competitive anymore.
Yep, that was all she wrote. Yep. And then that's the last we saw.
I mean, I don't mean underrated by general people that watch the NBA. I just think that he is vastly forgotten. I think the people that remember him don't underrate him. But now, when you're 30 years later, I think a lot of people have forgotten the impact that he had at North Carolina and with the Lakers.
Right. Yeah.
You know, you look at '83, and in 1983, I mean, they get swept. James Worthy was not playing in that series for the Lakers.
Well, that's correct.
And I don't remember. I don't think he played on the '81 team, to tell you the truth.
So do you think he was just there, '82, '83, just 2 seasons?
I think he was there just 1 season, '82.
Oh, that's interesting. I thought he played 2 years there.
Yeah, I think it was just 1. Hold on. We'll find out if you're wrong. We'll find out if I'm wrong. I'll just look it up real quick. 1981 NCAA championship game.
No, that's really going to be interesting to hear this. I don't remember if he was part of it or not.
I think he played, but I'm not sure. Hold on. Okay. All right, he did play. He was in that game. He was 3 for 11, scored 7 points. In contrast, Steve Risley was 1 for 1. He didn't miss a shot, and he scored 7 points, 3 for 4 free throws. So, actually, you could say that he played better than James Worthy in that game.
Oh, my gosh. If Steve's listening to this show, he'll never live it down. So the one thing that Steve did tell me, I think he told you two on the air, is he said that he scored the last point of that game. From the free throw.
I don't know if he did. He might have. I know he scored early on because Ted Kitchell got in foul trouble. And I do remember watching the game, and I think Risley got a putback on a rebound. That would have been the shot he made. And then he hit a couple free throws later, and I think he was 1 for 2 at the end of the game. So,
yeah. Good stuff, Steve. Well, all right, Mike. You know, I appreciate that recap of '82, And, there was another on this day, and we don't have, as much time to go over it real quick, but Muhammad Ali beat George Chuvalo on this day.
Was it the first
rounds.
time or the second time?
Well, it's 1966.
First time. Yeah, first
time. Yeah. 15 rounds, Mike. And I didn't realize George Chuvalo was that bad a man to last 15 rounds.
Oh, yeah. George Chuvalo, I don't know if anybody ever knocked him out. I know George Foreman stopped him in 1970, but that was, I think, in the third round, and Chuvalo was bleeding like, as they say in Indiana, a stuck hog. So...
All right, Mike.
All right, guys. Remember, go to MyBookie.AG, go through it through thegruelingtruth.net, and click on the banner at the top of the page to get a $1,000 bonus, 50% of whatever you put in on your first deposit. Go to the Sheridan Report, at Sheridan Report, or thesheridanreport.com. $10 a day for Bobby's report. You get it the night before, or $50 a week. We are going to go ahead and wrap the show up now. I want to tell everybody that at 6 o'clock tonight, we will have 6 o'clock Eastern. We'll have the wrap-up to the Indiana Basketball Weekly show for the season. So that'll be myself, Steve Risley, Colin Hartman, and Cole Hanna. You can hear that live at 6. You can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, wherever you find sports podcasts. You'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Bobby Sheridan, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.